Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone from around the world. Thanks for coming and joining us today for this Workspot webinar. We have got a great webinar for you guys today because we have a wonderful customer from Bohler that's going to share their before, during, and after experience as they've wandered into the world of Workspot, and they brought hundreds of cloud workstations into the cloud. Now, in addition, we're going to talk about all kinds of cloud strategies and everything sort of before, during, and after the lockdown as well. So it's going to get pretty exciting. We're going to do some live demos too. Now, during the course of this, we're going to ask you some polling questions, so be ready, with your number two pencils, mark those single and multiple choice answers. We're going to figure out exactly how everyone is feeling about certain topics, which is good. And then you can always go into the question box, and I encourage that. If you go into the question box and I see those scroll by, I will work those into the conversation. And if we don't get it to them today, I'll always get back to you guys later, okay? So that's important to know. Now, Bohler, my goodness, what an amazing company. And we got some thought leaders with us today that are going to share their story. So tell you what, let's kick it off first and talk, get a little intro from Rich. And then Rich, where are you coming today?
Good morning, Brad. Thanks for having us. Coming from you from New Jersey. That's where our corporate headquarters is. Just working on everything here, and it might look like I'm in the office. I'm actually in my basement. So a lot of us are still remote, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I love the technology you have. That it literally looks exactly like you're in your office, but just a little on that tech there. You got a little OBS going, a little green screen. What's going on?
Yes, yep. I got my OBS going. I got different times of day. If we want to change the time of day to maybe a nighttime, we can do a nighttime mode. We can do
Put the
if
leaves
it's
back on the
morning.
tree if you want.
Oh yeah, we can do a mid afternoon and late fall. It's whatever your pleasure might be. We try to
You got
make
that
it
snow.
flexible.
You got that Christmas scene too, don't you?
Yeah, I moved that one off. I would take a couple minutes to put back
Wow.
on. I do videos. I do I like to keep people thinking where I am. They don't know.
I love it. Well, we don't know, but it looks amazing. So thanks. And by the way, we got a lot more to go into as far as the engagement with Workspot, more on Bohler, the company, what you guys have accomplished, how it's transformed you guys, and all that's coming up in live demos as well. And speaking of, Derek, are you going to give us a little live demo later?
I will, whatever you want to see. I got control ready to go. I got my Workspot client. Workspot is my daily use case. So much like some of our CAD guys, we got a whole bunch of and gals, got a whole bunch of them doing design work on this thing. It's my lifeblood too. And I'm coming to you. It looks like I'm coming to you from my home office, and that's because that's where I am. I don't have fancy OBS going on, but yeah, I'm a user and I love it. So whatever you guys want to see, I'm ready to show you.
Well, you're a user, but what's your actual role? You're also the admin, right?
I'm IT operations manager by title, Derek Gretchen from Bohler. Rich has the vision. I'm the one that makes it a reality. So we've been doing the Workspot thing for a couple of years now, and I'm the one that's going in, pulling all the strings.
Beautiful. All right, we're going to see some of that fancy work today for sure. Now, hey, I am Brad Peterson from Workspot, and I'm coming to you live from Campbell, California. It's kind of San Jose area in California, and it's from the 9th floor of our office, and you can see it's totally empty. So I got a solo act going here today. And you know what? I'm going to ask a polling question right now regarding that, and it is the question of where is your primary work location? So this is a single response. You get to pick one of these. Are you in the work office right now, or the home office? Are you maybe in the garage like some other folks, or have you always worked from home? So the location really hasn't changed for you too much, right? But it is home right now. So let's go ahead and get those responses locked in, and I'm going to go ahead and close the polls. And when I share the polls, you guys are going to see the results. Look at that, 68% home office, 11% always worked at home. That's a pretty similar number to other times I've done this. And then 20%, 21 are back in the office. So Rich, what do you think about these numbers? That jive with you
Yeah,
guys too?
yeah, that seems to be pretty accurate to what we're seeing, and it's I mean, we'll talk about the bowler's footprint a little bit later, but even with that, it's, it varies. I mean, we have a couple situations where, we had to shut an office down for a couple weeks, several times now in different offices for, the COVID reason. So
Mhm.
while it's, if you look at the law of averages, yeah, that's about what it normally always is. And we don't know when it's changing, and we don't know, how
Right.
and which one. So it's, the key in the game is flexibility.
Beautiful. Well, I tell you, the second question is just right along those same lines, which is like, what are the biggest concerns with sending people home? Is it security, cost, performance, productivity, the cost of additional support? And by the way, multiple choice here. So pick your top two answers. All right. The idea is like all of a sudden you had to send folks home and you had to figure that out. And we're going to talk about that today and how Rich and Derek managed that rather successfully. And so let's get your responses here. I'm going to go ahead and close the polls and share the results, and then you're going to see, you know, this is very consistent with what I've seen in the last several months of asking the same question, that performance and productivity were first, where it seems like to me in the past, like a year or so ago, security was always first, and that's why a lot of folks didn't get to work from home. And now it's like you have to work from home. So performance and productivity followed by very closely by security. Derek, what's your feeling on those results?
I think knee jerk it would be, why is performance and productivity above security and cost, right? But I think that was our experience too, being in the engineering space. One of the things that we wanted to make sure we delivered to the customers, which, you know, are our engineers primarily, is a good CAD experience, or whatever production applications they're using, right? We normally were buying these $2,500, $3,000 behemoth workstations with a ton of horsepower. Can we achieve something that's even close to that with virtual technology? Turns out we can, and we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so now that you're doing it, now you got like, it's like, okay, we got productivity performance now, and security is there, and you guys are going to talk about that also. Cost, you know, you can roll these things up, and you guys have addressed them all. Even the fourth one. The fourth one is like, what's my IT staff doing now? You know, they used to be in the back room, you know, repurposing and rebuilding hardware. Well, they're not anymore. They're doing other things. So we're going to hear all about that today too. Now, when I hide these results and I go to the slide again, this is kind of the punchline slide, okay? So I'd like to start with the punchline. What are we all talking about today? What are we trying to accomplish? And the notion is this: if you look at this diagram, if you put your CPU, GPU combination and your data in the cloud, and you put that in close proximity to the designers, the engineers, the architects, you have all three legs of the stool together. Now, productivity can be as high as you can imagine it. The CPU, GPU are crushing the data, and with gigabit speeds to the data, opening files and closing them is just like in the blink of an eye. And because the users are only 15, 20, 25 milliseconds away, their refresh rates feel like it's a physical local machine. And if you're accomplishing that, it's like productivity now in your company is amazing. You can hire people from anywhere. You don't have to lose employees if they're moving away. You can just say, no, I'll move your cloud from the East Coast, your workstation in the cloud from the east to central to west, but you can stay and work with the team. You know, that's the idea here, right? And so this is what we're going to do. Over the course of today's webinar, we're going to talk about these sorts of things that are amazing, okay? And that is, we did our intros. We'll do a little more on that so you know more about the companies we're talking about today, both Workspot and Bohler. And then we're going to say, listen, how did you guys know as thought leaders, you know, that this desktop and the cloud thing was important before the lockdown happened? So they're going to tell you. And then we're going to say before, during, and after lockdown, what's going on? What were the lessons learned? We're going to dig deep into those sorts of details. Okay? So that's the idea. Now, with that, one more polling question before we go on, and that is this one right here. How would you describe your business today? Are you guys a single location with just everyone in sort of a city area, or are you distributed across the country, or maybe even internationally? You might have developers or some contractors that are international, and really that makes you an international company. So let's get a distribution here on where you guys are and your footprint and so forth, even though it's not that everyone's in the office, they're remote, but like what really describes you guys? So let me close this and share those results. All right, guys, so this is what we've got. And this is super typical. It's like 3/4 of the folks are actually distributed across the country, probably the US, could be other countries as well. And then we have some that are centralized and focused in one area, and then international groups as well. So I think that is pretty typical, and it's amazing. It's good to know who we're talking about with today. One of the other questions I would love to ask you guys quickly in a polling question is just like, does your company have a cloud first strategy? And what this means is if I need a new service in my company, I can't just go buy some software and build some servers in the on-prem data center. I have to see if there's a cloud first, or if there's a cloud service for that, and I have to evaluate it. And if it's good, I can use it, and if it's not, then I'll go and build my servers and so forth. So it's like, and it can be fully enforced across the company, or it could be up to the departments, or you may not even have a said policy today. So let's get a distribution on that. All right, I lock in your votes, and I'm going to go ahead and share. Now take a look at this, Rich. Okay, 62% don't have the policy today. That doesn't mean they're not using services, but it means that it's not a policy that's either supported across the country or the department. What do you think of that distribution, and how does that compare to Bohler?
Yeah, when you talk about a official policy, I don't know how many companies actually have a, locked in official policy, but I know, it's our policy at Bowler that, and before we buy anything, do anything dealing with IT, and of course that involves anything that plugs into the wall, unfortunately for us, but they come through us, and we've come to the realization that cloud-based is the way to be right now, and we're looking at ERP software. Okay, what are we doing? We're doing cloud-based. We're doing the a little piece of software for doing this. Nope, we're doing cloud-based. As long as the option's there, it's secured and it performs, which the technology's there to support it all. So it's we're cloud-based all the way.
Cloud-based, yeah. And the more success you have there, I think the more
Right.
comfortable you are with its capability, its uptime, its performance, its level of security, and even dealing with the world of OpEx rather than CapEx.
Yep.
It's just like you got to wrap your head around that, right? All right,
Yeah.
so thanks for that. Now we're going to jump into your section. Let's find out more about
Sure.
Bohler, who you guys are as a company, and then we're going to go into the before, during, and after story. Rich.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a little bit of history. I've been at Bowler for just over 21 years now. And as you can imagine, when I started, we had 6, 7 offices, and they were all within relatively close driving distance to each other, a couple hours at the most. And over the years, we've started spreading out more and more, and that comes with challenges. And a lot of those challenges were, okay, how do we, keep files synchronized? How do we do this? How do we do that? And, as projects move from A to B to C in different locations, it's like, all right, well, we were always looking for a better solution. And, over the period of time, we started seeing, everybody notices that Microsoft is, push people to the cloud, make it, um, you know, make the pricing so that you can't turn it away anymore. We dipped our toe into that. We talked a little bit about, the files and the synchronization. How do we solve that? Offices with phone systems. How do we solve that? And every single time it kept coming back to, oh yeah, we'll make that cloud-based, or oh, we'll make that decentralized. Oh, how are we going to do disaster recovery? Oh, decentralize it. So it was really over a long period of time that we started seeing more and more things that just, I don't want to say push us in that direction, but it made the most sense. When you take something, you look at the solutions and you evaluate them and you say, hey, I can do it this way, I can do it that way. It's like, well, this is really the way everything seems to be going, and this gives me a lot more flexibility. Let's stick with that kind of solution. So, and then as we started growing, we're like, wow, that just made it real easy. Oh, hey, look at that. We don't need to worry about, $100,000 worth of infrastructure for an office of 5 people. It's like, oh, the Workspot will solve that too. There's a lot of different things that, we found along the way that wasn't always necessarily in the ROI projections and calculations that, it really eases the process.
And getting back into the nitty gritty a little bit of that, I came in, so I'm going on 6 years at Bowler, and when I started was kind of the infancy of this whole project in terms of workplace flexibility. Okay, can we layer virtualization on top of it? One of the unique challenges I think that we had being an engineering firm, and I'm sure a bunch of other verticals have the same challenge, is latency, right? So literally, I mentioned this before, just CAD can be pretty tough if you're working far from your files. And Brad, you talked about that before. So the way to bridge the gap between the data and the end user experience and having all that stuff sit right next to each other for the best application experience to be productive for us was Workspot.
Yeah. And I mean,
Well,
this wasn't an overnight thing, and it's more of a, there was all kinds of trials, tribulations, oh,
oh yeah.
this was so close, but it doesn't work, oh man, that's, bummer. All right, we'll try it again. And, there's other things we did besides Workspot in the background that, helped us get to that. And we'll touch on those later.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little philosophy you guys have about what you do and your purpose.
Yeah, sure. I mean, empower the ambitious to become the accomplished is what, we wanted for the internally. And then externally for our clients, we want to be your go-to consultants. We do a lot of land development. We do a lot of helping with the development process. We want to be that, full-on consultant for everything that you do. And we have all the different, services to provide. So, there you go. That is our purpose, and we live that every day. I mean, we want to put things in our employees' hands as well as, our customers' hands to, oh, you want to do that? Okay, great. And that's something that we've been driving on for 3 or 4 years now. That, it lends itself to the mentality that you have to stay alive, doing, being responsible for all this IT. So it served us well.
Beautiful. And that takes us to the diagram that outlines kind of how you guys exist today. Is that right? Sort of based on
Yeah.
that map we saw, where all those offices and where those people are.
Yep.
You're supporting them in a config like this. You want to jump in and kind of.
Yeah, sure. I mean, kind of alluded to it earlier where, we had, every office had a server. Every server had all the files on it. Every files had to be backed up. Everything had to be backed up and moved off site. And that gets old pretty fast. And so, years ago, we started looking for solutions and, how we can do that. And obviously the cloud always entered the picture, but then it's, cost and performance and, okay, well, bandwidth got cheaper. Oh, performance got better. Oh, there's private cloud and public cloud. Oh, hey, look what Microsoft's doing with their public cloud, Oh, they've got endpoints everywhere. Oh, the latency's going down. Before we tried Workspot, years before we tried Workspot, we tried a couple private based, very similar using, Citrix stacks or VMware stacks in their own data centers. But one of the bigger problems we always ran into was latency. And it's like, oh man, if only you guys had more endpoints and, more distributed, infrastructure would be great. And it's, okay, we had to put that, lay it to rest and, waited another year or two and come back around to it. And it's like, all right, oh, hey, maybe we can try that again with this other vendor. And, we as a company, again, back to the empower the ambitious to become the accomplished. You say, okay, well, what can we do? And we started really looking at, what new employees were looking for and asking for. And it's, hey, flexibility, flexibility. We want more flexibility. I want to be able to work from whenever and wherever I need to, not just when you tell me to. And that was a cultural thing that we had to adapt to. And we did that, 2, 3 years ago. And we said, okay, well, what's everything we need in place? And we're like, okay, well, we recently, at that point, we had recently started using Microsoft's Direct Access or, always on VPN solution. So that helped a lot of the people, the project manager types that were traveling anyway with laptops and, they can get their files from anywhere. And we actually started with AWS in that cloud. And okay, we had that and we had some remote access solutions that worked. And then it was, the last piece is always like, oh, how are we going to make those CAD people happy? They're hard to please, and you're going, oh, hey man, and that's, we tried. I think it was 4 or 5 different solutions, and we were at an event with Andy and Eric that we've talked about. That all of a sudden they started showing this demo, and Derek and I both looked at each other and went, "Gotta let demo now, schedule demo, get that demo."
Schedule demo. Yeah.
Yeah,
And by the
and it
way,
was like,
when you throw those names out there like Andy and Eric, I guess a lot of people in the community know, but maybe you want to, a little more on
oh
that.
yeah, Andy Knopf with Mead and Hunt and Eric Quinn with CNS Companies. They're part of the ACEC IT group that we're all. It's a great group of people all throughout the country, throughout the world. That we get together and we talk about our industry, the AEC industry, and all the same problems, all the same types of solutions, software. So it's always a nice resource to be able to talk about things. And then when you see those answers and it clicks and you're like, that makes perfect sense. And it had
Yeah.
started, everything started falling into place at that point because it was like, oh, hey, the latency's down, everything's down, everything works. You're like, ah, wow, hold on. And so we had, and that's kind of when we, you know, glommed onto the Workspot solution is, okay, this is going to be what helps us be more flexible in our work environment. And, it put us in a perfect situation, not to jump too far ahead, but, when the pandemic hit, it was, oh no, what are we going to do? And it's like, everything we're already doing, we just got to turn the knob up. We just got to, crank it up a little bit. And, and a couple sleepless nights for the IT department, doing its deployments, a couple, just a couple. I don't know if you need to talk about that now if you want. When when knew the decision was coming down the pike, we had just moved our corporate headquarters of, geez, I don't know, it's engineering and corporate, so it's 150, 160 people, just down the road in Jersey. But we're just dust is settling from that, and I get the CEO, CFO, and COO in my office, and they're okay. Rich, here's the situation. We'd all been paying attention, and we knew they're like, all right, it's Monday, we're having the conversation. What if we had to say Thursday morning, everyone's got to work from home, and after the 30 or 60 seconds of panic and terror, wash over you, then you're like, oh, well, wait a minute, that's solved and that's solved and we got this covered. Oh, hey, shouldn't be a big deal. And then I'm on the phone with Derek asking him, questions which are putting him into a panic, like, hey, how long would it take to provision 300 more work spots? And you know, his gears start turning, and it's like, yeah, we can do that. And I told him, and I'm usually pretty calm, cool, collective when I'm talking to them, and they're looking at me like, like, that can't be the answer. I'm like, no. I'm like, yeah, no, no problem. We'll get it done by, and I calculated it out, a little Excel thing. And I'm like, yeah, we'll be done at like 3:38 a.m. on Thursday if we work 24/7. And they're just like, no, really, let us know later today when you think. I'm like, all right, it's going to be the same answer, but
It was a
you
scary
know,
accurate ETA too. It was like that
yeah,
to the hour.
So this is, by the way, very different from a lot of the folks that are on right now. Now, a lot of folks are in the AEC community, and hopefully they're as connected as you guys. Because what I'm hearing is key is when you heard about Workspot, you went out and you put your feelers out, and you went to find
yeah,
out some folks that had experience on there. Because there may not have been a lot, but you got Andy and Eric, and that assured you. Well, now you guys are the guys with the
right,
experience as well. And so from there, then you actually launched 30 or so of these internally before the lockdown hits.
right,
So Derek is going, I know how to drive this thing, and this thing works, right?
right,
And the biggest challenge I heard from you was, it's like, we'll never get the CAD users to say this is giving them the responsiveness that they would need. It's not going to feel like a local, but
yeah,
it's apparently it did. And then when the lockdown came in, then you guys were able to turn the flame up and send everybody home and work. And
right,
in addition to Workspot, Office 365,
yeah,
voice services, it's like you guys figured this out ahead of time. So
right,
if we roll it back a little bit more on that, because remember, a lot of the
sure,
folks here, they don't have a cloud first strategy. They might not be in the
right.
cloud. They're hitting this thing early in their cycle. It's later in your cycle. What should they look for? How do they discern when they look into the world and it's like cloud desktop
Yep.
VDI this, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of our success came from us as, IT leaders trying to solve our problems. So, you heard me mention early on that, we move offices, an office moves maybe every 6, 7, 8 years, and it's okay, what's the biggest problem? Okay, downtime. All right, phone problems. Maybe we got to change phone numbers, and we start dealing with all these different headaches that, like I said, I've been at the company for 21 years, so I've seen it all from the beginning. And then you start saying, hey, wait a minute, if we had a cloud-based phone system, we'd never have to change our number again. We'd never have to worry about, we'd never have to deal with Verizon on the East Coast again. Oh, wow, that's amazing. And it's like, okay, you start to think about that. And, luckily we handled that, 7, 8 years ago. We started, slowly migrating everybody to that. Okay, great. That problem will eventually be solved. Let it get to all the offices. And we had the, similar with storage. And we've talked about Panzora in the past and, other solutions alike, and it just makes sense. It's like, okay, well, you're decentralizing your files, great. Oh, you're also providing a disaster recovery, great. Oh, you're also providing a backup, great. It's like, oh yeah, never thought about it that way. Awesome. Okay, cool. Just justified all those costs right there. And the time and energy and savings and being able to sleep at night knowing that stuff is all secure.
Don't forget
Um, you know,
Exchange Online too, and
oh yeah, yep,
all the
yep,
different Exchange servers we had, and simplifying all
yeah,
that. Office 365.
yeah, getting there with that. That was with Office, and that was kind of the tipping point, I think, was that once we had migrated some with the phone system and some with Office, we were like, wow, this is going to change it. This is going to make a major change. And then, you'd laugh because you get some of the leadership going, okay, hey, we're doing an Office move. 10 years ago, it's like everything turns off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. Everyone's going to have a world of pain. Get over it. That's all we can do. If you want to make sure we're up and running first thing Monday morning, okay, fine, we deal with it. I talked about the moving the corporate headquarters. We were literally in a conference room. All the top C-level employees and everything, and all the leaders from that Jersey office, they're all like, "Okay, what's going to go down?" And I was like, "Nothing. Nothing's going to go down. What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, well, there's always a headache." And I'm like, "Wow, you guys don't pay attention when I buy stuff and send emails out." And I was like, "Thanks," but to the point I talked to them. I said, look, the phone system's decentralized. Just plug into the internet anywhere you are. The person can be at home. The person can be at the new office. Internet up and running. Be there. Okay. Your files aren't physically here. They're everywhere. You can either use your Surface and get on with direct access. No big deal. You can, go here, 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 any other office. No big deal. Fine. Everything was ready to go. Email up in the cloud. There's no reason that to come down. And they were just like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, wow, okay, I gotta sell our services a little bit better. You guys aren't aware of that, but they just did old school mentality, and it was a
Yeah.
realization for everybody involved. Just went okay, and that one, like I said, that was only the preparation for that was only a couple months before the pandemic shut down. So it was like they finally got it. They got a double dose of look, offices aren't that important anymore. You
Yeah,
know,
but then you got to go to the CAD folks and you got to go here. Listen, the GPU accelerated workstation
right.
from Workspot is going to come out of the cloud now, and your applications are going to be there and your data in there, and it's like, here, try this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how did
When
that go?
well, and Derek can speak to this too, but when we first started our, proof of concept kind of testing it, I mean, we tested it and we loved it. We loved the flexibility aspect of it. We understood it. We appreciated it. And anybody that's a change management guru is going to tell you that, desire is always one of those driving factors that you can't necessarily control. And it's, we as IT people had that desire to be like, this makes everyone's life so much easier. Of course, you got to talk to the CAD people, and there's no offense to any CAD people that might be in the room, but a lot of times they are very structured and they're very rigid on how they want things to be and be done.
Yeah.
And so we showed it to a few of them, and we were like, "Oh, this is going to be great. We're going to have, after I get done with this demo, we're going to have probably 100 people with CAD wanting to do this flexibility thing. It's going to be great." And and it, even though it was a huge push, we came back and it was, I think, 25 to 30, CAD people and managers said, "Yeah, yeah, we'll use that." And we kind of looked at each other and went, "Well, that was underwhelming." And a lot of it had to do with the culture that was still being implemented, that was still being changed, getting
Probably
familiar and
economics a
comfortable with
little
the
bit too,
technology.
right? Yeah.
It was all a matter of, okay, let's baby step it. And we should have known better because most of the time, that's how things proceed at Bowler. We do baby steps. We don't like doing huge changes all at once, but um, it started growing. It started seeing it. There were still some of the CAD managers that were naysayers, and it's like, oh, I don't know, if I take my cursor and I take my crosshairs and I make them as big as I can and I shake them violently across the screen, it doesn't look the same as if I was sitting in front of my workstation. And you're just going, okay, I can't argue with you. I'm not going to even argue with you. But it's like an unrealistic expectation. It's like, hey, my car can't fly. I'm not going to use it. You're going, well, yeah, it can't fly. No, obviously. So it was more of just a time and a proven technology thing. And before the pandemic hit, they were all on board. They all understood, like, hey, this does make sense. Like, oh, we get it. And the performance was there. They always thought we were exaggerating, and it's like, no, like, it's there. Go for it, test it, run it.
Cool.
I mean,
But you know what we should do? We should flip over to Derek because I think Derek can actually show us that same experience that those guys were seeing, right?
yeah,
And
Sure.
so let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and share change presenter over to Derek, and so you can give us an idea of the experience of the end users when they popped in, and yeah. And by the way, two things. There's like how you control it and how you manage it and launch these things,
Yeah,
and
which one
then
do you want to see first? Because I could do either. I got the Workspot client.
yeah, let's look at the
Yeah,
client
let's start
first.
at the
look at
beginning.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
let's
we've
look at
got
the client.
our branded little Workspot client here. So I have some test instances on here, but anything you see that's Bohler branded, this is like typically what one of our end users would see. So
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
just to let
all
you
it is.
guys know, the client, the Workspot client that you see here is a Windows 10 native, client. It's running right there. But it's also on Mac, iOS, Android, smartphones, tablets. There's HTML5 access to it as well. And this is a great example of it just running native on a Windows machine. And so what sort of machine do you have there at home, Derek?
It's actually a little custom built gaming rig, but yeah, it's running Windows 10. But like you said, it doesn't have to be anything super high octane like I happen to have. We've got people that are running Workspot client on a $300 laptop, and it's pretty much the same experience, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice because the client itself actually just creates an encrypted proxy connection up into the cloud. The workstation is running in the cloud. It's essentially compressing its pixels and H264ing them down to you, uncompressing. And the machine you've got local just really needs to play Netflix effectively. It's just playing the pixel movie, and it's sending keyboard clicks and mouse movements on up. And so yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So
Yeah,
what does it
and
look
you
like?
can't
Yeah.
tell from looking at me, but I've got two screens here too. And, I wanted to point out that we have a lot of people that, CAD users especially, they want to have their tools on one screen and their drawings on the other. This stretches across the two screens beautifully. It's pretty seamless. You can take and resize the windows however you want. It's really nice.
Yeah.
We even have some people that will name nameless that have, the 34-inch wide 4K
Rich is
displays
talking about
being driven.
himself.
Yeah, supports
That
multiple monitors, different configurations, 4K, absolutely. That's pretty cool.
zero lag, zero issues, zero bandwidth constraints. It's
Well, it
impressive.
comes down to their response time. So what's typical response time when those guys are connected? If millisecond wise, is it 15, 20? Do you know?
It's
Yeah,
probably a mixed bag. We've got some people that are running, latency to Workspot could be 50, 60 milliseconds. And even for those people, it's actually really good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if you connect to the desktop and then you click in you click in that space there, you'll actually see that. That's cool. All
Yep,
right.
the green indicator will tell you if it's got good network. And I'm in here, I'm just putting in my Active Directory credentials. The control integration ties into your own AD if that's what you got. And it'll load this window up. It's going to stretch across my two screens, so just let me know if you need me to resize the window or anything like that, but it should be pretty
That's
good.
good.
And I'm in. This is my
Yeah.
desktop.
So you're in the cloud.
I'm in the cloud. I can open up a CAD session. I'm not a great CAD power user, but
Oh, Civil
one
3D.
of the
Yeah. Hey, so you must package these Windows 10 OSs as virtual machines for them. So when they come in and they say, hey, I need a desktop, you associate one with them and launch it. So it's got all the apps, domain controlled. It's got access to the data. Is that right?
Yeah, and one of the cool things I can show you how we kind of provision, one instance if you want here in a minute. But one of the things that I really liked about this whole experience was, well, first of all, we had our SCCM infrastructure tied into Azure already. We had a cloud distribution point up there, so pushing applications and packages out
Cool.
was really straightforward. But one of the things that the Workspot engineering team helped us with was, for the provisioning process, if you've got some applications that everybody uses, right? Like for us, it was Civil 3D, Office 365, no brainer for your office applications and email and stuff. You can take those installers and actually put them locally on your template in Workspot control. And I'll show you that in a minute, so that when you say, okay, I want one new desktop, quantity 1, and it turns that desktop on, you wait for however long it takes to install that stuff, be it 10 minutes or an hour. And it's just already there when you start the desktop for the first time. So to some extent, the admin can streamline that experience for the end user. You almost don't even need to really do anything for them before they log in for the first time.
I'd say most everything that's on your desktop would have been pre-deployed.
Pretty much, yeah. Maybe not mine because I have a bunch of toys,
Wow.
but
Yeah, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
All right.
so
So there's
on a
control. So this is browser-based UI, and with this you can manage all the pools, all the desktops, multiple regions, the whole deal, right?
Yep, yeah, and our setup in here isn't all that complicated. We basically just have two pools. That is where all the magic happens. And the only reason we really have two is because there was a SKU change at some point on the Azure desktop side, right? But all it really is there's an AD integration here. And so if we want to add John Doe, who's a brand new hire at Bohler with the Workspot desktop in Active Directory users and computers, you just add them to the Workspot group. That Workspot group is associated with one or the other of these pools. And then in order to get them a desktop, you take one of these ones that's available, and then you just assign it to them. Or if you needed to provision a new one, you can come in here, edit the pool. There's 73 in here now, just make it 74. And then the provisioning process I talked about just a second ago has kicked off now. So
Yeah.
whenever the VM is there and it's got all its applications installed, this will say /1, meaning there's one available. Assign it to that user, and then instantly they're off and running.
It's amazing that you get the user to install the client or use HTML5 on any platform. And the first time they connect in, they go through all the authentication and so forth, and it assigns them their desktop or their workstation, and bam, they're in and working. And then that's theirs. So
Yep.
it's persistent. And you could run a job in the middle of the night, you go to bed, wake up in the morning, it's still cranking away, and you reconnect to it and keep working. So have you guys found this to help your productivity as a company?
yeah, I believe that'd be a great point for pretty much anybody that doesn't understand it. I mean, it's, if just like if you think about it from an office scenario, you walk in your office, you unlock your computer, you go do whatever you need to do. It's going to take a couple hours. All right. You walk out of your office. It's like, all right, well, at that point, just think of that and minimizing the client, and it's still doing whatever it needs to do in the background. And you're doing a rendering, you're doing, something, computation that's going to take a while. You can, do whatever you need to do, or you don't even have to be there. Just let it go. It's running. It's up and running the whole time.
We have some customers where the engineers actually have access to multiple workstations, so they can actually kick off work in a workstation, minimize it, go into another one, so they can actually almost be as productive as multiple engineers and deal with more of a full day of billing hours in some sense. So it can be, you could use it for occasional, you could share the use, you could have a person using more than one. The configuration is pretty interesting. So, and how do you figure on which one of the desktops or which configuration of the workstation to have for the user? It usually has different use cases in different apps.
So, luckily for us, it's pretty simple. We basically have two kind of tiers that we consider. One is sort of like the admin, which is running on a premium desktop SKU in Azure, and that's for your knowledge worker, somebody that doesn't necessarily need GPU acceleration to run CAD or Revit or any of those high octane applications. And then the bulk of 98% of the folks that we have are running on the AMD 16. It will be starting tomorrow. The process of figuring that out was a lot of trial and error, actually, and we alluded to this before. We have a fairly high expectation on performance and productivity at Bohler, I would say. So we wanted to make sure we weren't taking even a half step back from the processing power and the graphics power of our precision workstations on Dell that we were running. You know, they're $3,000 pieces of hardware. So
Got it.
we tested out 3 different SKUs. We came to a consensus after talking with some of the CAD managers and some of the design engineers that are actually doing design work and some benchmarks. We did some of our own benchmarking and then we came to that conclusion.
Beautiful. Hey, I am encouraging questions from the audience for sure, and we have a few. So, one came in from Tim Thorne, kind of a long comment and a question here. He actually is a new customer of ours right now, evaluating workstations as well. He used to use an alternative solution that was a legacy on-prem piece of technology. And he knew in that world, it took a lot of work to tune all that to actually get good CAD performance and so forth. And, he's finding that in the Workspot world, that's very different. Right? There's a number of reasons in that. When you're doing it on-prem, you actually have to build out all the hardware and the software, the memory and all that, sort of the GPU cards, and you're really sharing a lot. And more users go on, the worse it gets for everybody, right? When you go into the Workspot world and you're actually getting these resources from Workspot aggregated out of Azure and Google Cloud, our underlying public cloud platforms, we grab resources for you that are yours to consume, and it's fairly linear. You got more engineers or other employees that need access to desktops or workstations. We grab additional resources, and it's always, more people, more resources. It's not like 100 people on a bus that only has 50 seats, sitting on laps and so forth. So what have you guys found when you did launch this to folks, that might help Tim and others? What sort of tuning was involved when you ran CAD apps? Did you have to look at CPU or GPU utilization or memory or like solid state drive activity or networking, or what did you experiment, study, and learn?
Go ahead there.
Yeah, I would say out of the box, a lot of that stuff was already really smooth. And we started off on the NVIDIA desktops that had their proprietary drivers with the Tesla M60 cards. That's Autodesk certified hardware. The performance was kind of already there. The one thing that we needed to fine tune as far as the design experience was concerned was trying to get some of the really fine motor control details in there. Rich mentioned the mouse cursor before. A big part of doing design work is being able to zoom, pan, rotate a drawing, things like that. The Workspot engineers that we were dealing with had already had some experience from some of their other customers addressing through, it could be something as simple as a Civil 3D system variable. And if you set it from 1 to 3, it improved the rendering of that cursor ever so slightly. So we spent a good couple of months going back and forth on that stuff to really get it basically 100% of the way there.
Got it. All right. So, and I'm going to pop forward to a different slide here. There's a slide here that talks about that a little bit. And what I'll do is I'll take the screen back for just a minute and kind of address this. All righty then. And so let me go ahead and change presenter back to me and show screen. Okay, yeah, right there. So this is the configurations that you can get from Workspot here, and you'll see, there's a couple, 2, 3 desktop configurations. This is Windows 10, sort of small, medium, and large. And then you got 4 different configurations that are workstations. So when we call them workstations, it's still Windows 10, it's just GPU accelerated. And in this example here, it's got AMD GPUs. Now, you can configure it accordingly. So Tim and others, if you've got certain applications, you might be on the high end or on the low end here. It depends on the use case. You might use an 8th of a GPU, a quarter, a half, or the full GPU for some, real serious applications that are crushing it. That's why we figure, you got to figure out what the Goldilocks zone is here. That's just right for you, not too hard, too soft, right? And the beauty of that is that you get the pricing right? So the price is set and the performance, so you're not paying too much or too little and they're not getting enough performance. You can see some of the specs here on the AMD processors themselves, the number of virtual CPUs, the memory, the solid state drive storage and so forth, and that's configurable. And then basically, if you've got these sorts of applications that you're running, we work with our customers all the time to kind of put a chart together to figure out, which apps run on which config. So what sort of person? Are they full-time, part-time? Are they running high-end applications, oil and gas? Are they doing Revit and so forth? It's the broad spectrum. So as we continue to work with you guys, it's amazing to see how this actually works out well. Folks get just the right performance they want. And Rich, I think you were saying before, everybody wants a GPU, right? And so now you can actually give them one, even on the low end, if that's what they need. Now,
Right.
if I run my client on my side, I can bring it right up over here. And so I just connected into a GPU accelerated workstation in the cloud. You can see that right there. And I've got Revit running right here. Okay, so with Revit, you got little CAD models going on, and I can like zoom inside this house. And what's amazing, I know you're looking at this through GoToWebinar, right? So you might see some delay because of that, but I don't. On my machine here, this is all in California, so it's all West Coast based, and it's just super fluid here. It just rotates right on my mouse. There's just really no delay. It's pretty amazing. Other ways to take a look at that is even in Google Earth. There's a lot of vectors being redrawn here over and over. I'll go full screen on this. And you can see, this is the Eiffel Tower. So off in Paris, right? And I come into here and I can come in and really just rotate around this thing and get real-time views. So it's like, well, how could you do that on a $300 laptop, right? Well, you
Right.
can if you're using that to connect in to the cloud and run that app and really any and all apps that you've got and click done. Now that's closed, but it's still up there and running. So I can go grab it anytime I need. So what was the path with you guys when you go, oh, wait a minute, this is really working? And then you did go on that Thursday morning in lockdown. How did you end up supporting this with that many people going out there? Because now it's like, it's like a bigger deal. What happened then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the nicest things was we already were familiar with all the parts and pieces. We knew what issues we were going to run into. We knew how to, put things in place so that they weren't going to be issues. And then some bad communication and, you know, helping people understand, okay, who's going first, who's going second, and then rolling that out. And one of the things was, to your point earlier, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff is not important. I mean, we didn't need to worry about, hey, calling engineers and saying, hey, we just added those 300 licenses, great, but can we bump up this and can we bump up that and we can change those settings and change that? No, it was like, we bought, 300 more and we were implementing them, done. We didn't worry about it. And then because we had the time and energy and the foresight to get it perfect ahead of time, it was the same. There was no, it scaled perfectly. It was beautiful. So yeah, there was a lot of footwork behind the scenes for some of what you saw Derek doing before with provisioning new ones and adding new ones and assigning to people and going through them. And then we have a white glove approach with IT, and so we'll even we'll try to log in as them and make sure everything's there, backwards, forwards, sideways, make sure it's perfect for them. And then here you go. Here's your directions. Here's your page or two of how to install the client at home, what you need, what you don't need, and we saw it all. We've had people using 10-year-old computers that barely worked to come a few Chromebooks, anything, and the experience is the same. It was
We sent some
phenomenal.
people to Best Buy or Staples or wherever they could find hardware, because that was a big challenge, right? Back
Yeah,
in March or whenever quarantine started, was the supply chain,
yeah,
trying to find computers, and probably the overwhelming majority of folks that we sent home had something already they could use, and it basically didn't matter, to your point before, Brad, what it was. could have been Mac, could have been a Chromebook, could have been an
Yep.
old Windows PC, and a lot of that stuff was 10 years old, like Rich mentioned. So we had to do some scrambling and dealing with home network setups, helping people get connected, literally physically get connected, set their monitors up, docking station if applicable. Can you plug in Ethernet? That would be preferred over Wi-Fi, but we even had a lot of people running this thing over Wi-Fi with pretty good results. So
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of questions coming in now, and you guys keep the questions coming. One from Tim again was, how many monitors does it support? Now, there's monitors of different configuration. You can go 1080p, and there's like a number like 4 or 8. I'd have to go check out what the number is. Tim, I'll get back to you on that. And then you can go 4K monitors too. What was the max with you guys? How many monitors, or what's the resolution?
our
Who's
typical
the
use case is 2, and we're just running nothing super crazy like 24-inch 1080p displays. But I know we've had people running 3 and 4.
yeah?
And
There's a
Rich
few
has his
people
crazy
running
curve
4.
display.
Yeah, and there's a handful of us with the 34-inch 4K, and there's no difference. I mean, it's beautiful. I was skeptical that it was going to work because I thought about all those pixels it's got to push back and forth, and it knows what to do.
Well, it's beautiful that the public, internet infrastructure is set up for Netflix to be successful. So it's effectively the same thing. It's
Yeah.
H.264 coming your way, ready to receive, and away you go. So Chad asked a question too. Hey, what other storage solutions are there that you would put up there tightly coupled with the VMs and the GPUs and so forth? He knows you guys are using Panzura. I
Yep.
suppose, what else would you have used?
I mean, it can be any storage really. I mean, you can have a server stood up there that is its own storage. You could, tie into blob storage if you want. There's, other products like Banzor and Nasuni and even Talon, which is a software-based thing that runs on anything. I mean, there's any storage you want, it could be up there. It's just a matter of, we chose Panzor because one, we already had the infrastructure, and two, you want to be able to say, okay, well, you know, again, going back to flexibility. All right, people are in the office working great. Right now, we don't know about that tomorrow. What if tomorrow they get told, oh, by the way, you can't come in today? Well, okay, well, do they have the files where they need them? Do they have everything they need? That's why we chose to do the virtual Panzor up in Azure, just because it made the most amount of sense for the flexibility that we were looking for.
Nice, thanks. And
Well,
another couple of questions coming in
sure.
is Spencer. Let's see. Did you discover realistic internet bandwidth requirements? And then David Putnam is the same thing about latency and point cloud. It's like, what did you find there? Because you guys had to go and check your home networks. Was it cable
Yeah.
modem, DSL? Was it fiber? What was it? What was the bandwidth? What was the latency? How did that affect
Yep.
success?
Yeah, and part of that initial, workplace flexibility rollout that we did way before the pandemic was, you know, being engineers, we want black and white numbers, and it's okay. Well, what numbers do they need to have the best experience? And we're like, okay, we put our heads together enough times and said, all right, it's got to be under 100 milliseconds, and you got to have a 25 meg connection. And I mean, that's obviously pretty easy to come by in any sort of area, and remotely populated. And we have that we just pointed everybody to the tool, said, workspot.com/where. Take a screenshot of that, and that'll tell us. And so one of the requirements before the pandemic was, you got approval for workplace flexibility. You got to make sure you have your equipment at home, and you got to make sure you can prove your bandwidth. And they would just send us a screenshot. We'd give a thumbs up or thumbs down. And, once in a while we'd get some weird, 120 millisecond numbers or some, you see the graph in that too, and you'd see a little bit of a spike and a drop. And we're like, oh, you on Wi-Fi? They're like, oh yeah. Hey, can you plug in? Plug in, boom, done, problem
Yeah,
solved.
that is a big difference. And it isn't always the case that you can actually run a physical Ethernet cable over to your cable modem, but when you can, you should. It just gives you that
Yeah.
extra edge for sure. There's just too much interference, especially if you're doing 2.4, wireless for sure.
Yeah.
And
Or just
so,
upgrade the Wi-Fi. We had some of those people that, we walked them through how to upgrade their home Wi-Fi to a mesh type, and that was a huge improvement for most everybody.
nice. I love it. Hey, Luke asked a question long ago. I think it applies right now, which is he's interested in more analytical tools that can identify bottlenecks and problems at any point in the operation, from hardware to virtual environments, including ISP issues. Well, when you're running, I should have showed that. Derek and I, we were running the client. There's that little caret up on top. If you click that, bring that down, and you hover over the connection icon, it tells you what your bandwidth and your latency is right there. So it gives you a few things. There's also in the control mechanism, there's a reporting capability that gives you even more insight. And then what you guys wouldn't know is that Workspot has a NOC, a Network Operations Center, and we are just cranking on super high resolution information of what's happening in there, and we're resolving that down into some nice reports. So like if you ask, where is the problem, right? Because we're sort of monitoring all the way along the way, we can tell, is it in the client CPU memory? Is it in the network? You know, blah, blah, blah. So as we sort of polish those mechanisms in knockup, we're going to start slipping those out to each one of the clients as well. So you guys will see that in your control space in the future. So great question, Luke. All right, hey, so another question for you guys is just a quick one, polling question. How many of you guys have tried VDI before? You know, effectively, that's what we're talking about. It's the new version of VDI. It's not virtual desktop infrastructure anymore, because that's when you had to build it yourself, but it's cloud desktops, because they're literally delivered as a service. It's software as a service as a desktop, right? And so let's get those answers in and then close the polls and share the results. And so look at that. We have 2/3 of the folks have tried it before with success, and 1/3 of the people haven't. And that's common. And sometimes that's actually quite good that you haven't tried it before, because you don't have to worry about all that. Now, another question for you is, are you using Azure today? So, and what are you doing? Are you moving up into Azure, or let's open this up to any public cloud? Are you using public clouds today? And are you doing server workloads or data or this? This is multiple choice, so click every one that applies. And let's get those answers in. And I will then close the polls and show the results. Boom and bang. And this is what I see commonly. Azure Active Directory or Directory Services is always first. And then this is interesting though, other services in front of server workload and data workload. That's kind of cool for sure. And I noticed another question here. It's great for you guys from Chad Bennett, which is how does your staff participate in web meetings with webcams and computer audio, etc.? How does that work for you guys?
Works quite well, thank you. Derek's going to explain the technology behind it.
Yeah, so we actually make a general recommendation to most of our end users that if you really want the best audio video experience is to run, in our case, Microsoft Teams, just to run the local instance outside of the VDI. Now, it actually works in Workspot natively, and it works pretty well. And there's been a lot of tinkering that we've done with some third-party plugins. One's called Fabulatech that can help kind of streamline and get that codec going on there and do a little bit of better compression. I think if you're trying to get the best face-to-face, something, you know, for a webinar like this, for instance, it's just better to run that outside of remote desktop sessions. But we have a lot of people doing it, and we had to actually roll out. We were in the middle of upgrading from Skype for Business to Teams to kind of do some more of this rich collaboration anyway. And we had this beautiful change management plan going on that all got blown up by quarantine. So our feet really got held to the fire trying to figure out the best way to do that. And I've actually got a thread with our Workspot support team, who are really smart and trying to look at Microsoft's back end of things, and they're doing some optimization around that technology all the time. So we're trying to stay on the bleeding edge of that too, because it's obviously important as we're all working from home.
Yeah, from the management side of it, there was very little pushback. Everybody understood that, you know, okay, well, yeah, if you're running a computer that you can run the client on it. And a lot of people that were doing just audio, they can do it just fine from their virtual desktops. It works. The video works. Yeah, it just depends on all you want to do and what your expectations are. So, you know, it's again a lot of flexibility.
Nice. Hey, you know what? In the future with these webinars, I should be running them out of my workstation in the cloud, right?
Good.
Little GPU, little app, all run at the same time. So tell you what, let's wrap up. I just want to ask you guys a quick question. You know, you'll get a survey after this to see what you thought of the webinar today, if it's useful or not. Let us know how we can best follow up with you. That's always cool. All right. And with that, I want to thank, you know, our folks that we have today. Go ahead and close the polls. Thank Rich and Derek so much for your time today. Super valuable. You guys are thought leaders for sure, and heroes in this, and for you guys to share is amazing. Thanks, Rich. Thanks,
Brad. Appreciate your helping share our story. It's you know, something that everybody should be aware of and realize it's a great opportunity to be had.
Ditto that.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Rich. All right, everybody, have a great and fabulous day. Send any questions to me if you have beyond this. It's brad@workspot.com, and appreciate all your time joining us. Take care. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you.